Welcome to She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator. And my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two. Or 5. We'll see how it goes. We're open to all of it. It's fine. Bring your questions. If you're not new here, then you know that every week we have a new poll, and that poll is generally the topic of the day. But again, we'll see how it goes. And today's poll is, what VO style do you book the most? I know that there's a good portion of you that narrate audiobooks, and those aren't going to be conversational all the way through, because we're talking about conversational reads today. Spoiler alert. Or how to sound conversational, all the things. But anyway, so let's take a look at, I'm getting distracted way too easy. Okay. 17 votes so far. Majority of you said conversational and natural. Slow down, Ange. None of you said corporate and polished. None of you said announcer and big energy. I thought a few of you, for sure, would have said announcer and big energy, because I know some of you do YouTube narrations. Corporate and polished, I'm surprised by that too, because some e-learning is sort of corporate and polished. But then 40% of you, so 60-40 split, 40% of you said storytelling and emotional. I would imagine that would be most of you audiobook narrators. So you see it more and more often. And this trend started a while back, maybe, 7 years ago, 8, 9, maybe? If we think about even before perhaps you even discovered the desire to be a voice actor, we relate a voice actor to be that big energy, that big announcer style. Think those car salesman sort of commercials, right? Or old-timey radio stations where the announcer voice was everywhere. And that's pretty much what we associate voice actor voices. But in reality, and I think more often than not in recent years with the whole COVID shutdown, people were wanting to connect and relate and to, I guess connect is the best word for it, with other humans, because we were so separated and segregated and locked down from seeing each other that we wanted to be able to reconnect with other humans. And so with that, the conversational style has become pretty much just about every voiceover script that I have seen in the last 8 years has been more of a conversational, relatable, girl next door kind of read. Right? And I know that for some, it's kind of a hard thing to do. And I think it really comes down to just allowing yourself to be you and not to try to emulate someone or something else. It's just to be you, right? It comes down to understanding the script, again, always, first and foremost. Who are you as the narrator? Who are you talking to, and why are you talking to them? If you can understand that, then you'll understand why and how to submit this read. For example, a conversational read is pretty much how I'm talking to you now, right? I'm slowing down, I'm speeding up, I'm modulating the sound of my voice, the energy in my voice, right? I'm switching it up, changing it up. But I'm having a conversation with, albeit one-sided, I'm having a conversation with you, right? That is conversational. And I think for a lot of us, especially in the beginning, we hit that record button and then we immediately revert back to big announcer voice. I'm the voice actor. I must use my voice actor voice. When in reality, it just needs to be you talking as if you are whomever this is in the script. So if you understand who you are, meaning are you, I always use this example, I'm sorry if you guys are tired of hearing it, but am I a kindergarten teacher? Am I a doctor? Right? Who am I? Because who you speak as that person is going to change. And then also, who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to a group of kindergartners? Are you speaking to a group of other doctors? Right? How are you going to speak to those people? So, also, another thing I see a lot of newer voice actors do is jumping in and recording before they have that firm understanding of the script, the W's of the script, and inserting artificial inflection. So I'm not reading the words, or I'm not telling the story, I'm not asking the questions. I am reading the words, or I am inserting artificial inflection just because I don't really understand what I'm saying, but I'm going to, and it turns into sort of a melody. Where did that little hair come from? Did you guys see that? And it turns into sort of a melody that doesn't, in longer pieces especially, doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't sound like you're connected to what you're saying. You're just artificial inflecting every so often, and it becomes a sort of a melody. And I see that a lot. And that comes from not taking the time to fully understand the script, right? So if you can make that one subtle shift of really just tuning everything else out and understanding those W's of the script, it should help you to get to that conversational voice a little bit easier. The key to conversational is authenticity. Sounding like you are not only you, right? It is coming from a place of understanding. And then again, if you're just sharing information, it's going to sound one way. If you're having a friendly banter or, a friendly conversation, it might sound a little bit more lighthearted. Right? So if you understand that script, and I'm going to say this a lot, it'll definitely help you to get the conversational out of you. I'm just checking my notes here. Oh, that was another point. Again, if you're understanding the script, how you talk to one singular person is going to change versus a group of people, right? And I think, and I mention this a lot, but if you have pictures in your studio, that will help you to sort of narrow your focus. So if you have a picture of your significant other or your whole family group or your child, if you have pictures of these people in your studio, that will help you to find that right voice. And some people even, I hear, have mirrors in their studios as well, so they could sort of fix their face, right? If it's a upbeat, happy read, you want to make sure that you're smiling while you're recording, because that definitely comes through. Or if you're being, again, back to the example of a doctor talking to another group of doctors, it might be a little bit more professional and polished, right? Maybe a little bit more evenly paced. Just I'm checking my notes here. Yep, human authenticity is going to be your edge in this for sure. I think I covered everything that I want to cover, but again, this is a safe space to ask questions. If you have questions regarding anything that I have said, if you have tips for getting to that conversational money voice of yours, then please share it in the chat. This is a place to share, chat, ask questions. So it's not just about me. So let's go over to the comments and see what you guys got. I think first in, I think Abe Froman from Chicago, Nashville, was here before I was even in here today. Abe says, good morning all from Nashville. May your PFH be high, your mouth clicks be few, and your TikToks go viral. And speaking of which, I've been seeing an awful lot of you on TikTok more often. So that's nice. If I see you, I'm gonna like and comment and all the things. Abe says, I have to admit I do both storyteller and conversational. Depends on the book, but also on if the book is in first person or third person. That is another thing. I'm more conversational if it's in first person. Yes, because if it's in third person, as the narrator, you're more of the storyteller, right? It's not something that is, I guess, connected. Is not coming from your perspective. It's coming from a third person, a third party. So you are the narrator, the storyteller, instead of your personal reflections, if that makes sense. And that's going to definitely change the tone as well. Caesar says, oh, hi, Angela. Predictably, storytelling and emotional, wherein there is a tiny and lesser-known subset called spicy. But currently, the 2 books I'm recording are nonfiction, so natural delivery. That's about it. Congrats on Launchpad, Angela. Hello, everyone. It's my birth month today. How is it your birth month today? So just September in general. Well, happy early birthday. Happy birth month. I celebrate the whole month through, too. Why not? And I won't be buying myself maybe just a couple of things. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We all know what that means, Caesar. What is it? What's on your list next? Abe says, good for you, Caesar. How old are you turning? Abe says, if you like a good conversational style or just want an example of then, Stephen King's Duma Key, read by John Slattery, is top tier. Stephen King's got a great deal of books that are read really well. One of my favorite Stephen King audiobooks is Pet Sematary, narrated by Michael C. Hall. Dexter. Super good. Rustic Hillbilly says, happy birth month. Yeah, don't you celebrate your whole birth month? You should. I do. Ken says, happy birthday month, Caesar. All of my books have been straightforward, conversational style. The big one I will be starting soon. The rights holder likes my just sitting around the campfire telling stories. I like it. Caesar says, how about that? Duma Key is one of my favorite books. I'll pick it up from Audible. Also, Abe Froman, I shall be 46. Kat says, good morning and brought the donuts. Thank you, Kat. Appreciate you. Caesar says, and thank you for all the greetings. It's that time of life where snap, crackle, and pop have less to do with breakfast cereal and more like the sounds my lower back makes when I get out of bed. For me, it's my knees. My knees are creaky. Paul says, good afternoon, Angela, et al. Good morning, good night. For me, it would most commonly be either conversational and natural in the nonfiction genre or storytelling and emotional for fiction, but I recently booked a job for a Mideastern property developer where I deliver my best corporate and polished. And they came back and said, no, we like your sad and dramatic demo. So, a property development company wanted a sad and dramatic read? Oh, Ken says, snap, crackle, pop. Those noises are covered up by the moans and groans of just trying to stand up. The noise my father makes. Bonus points if you know the TV show that line came from. Probably a few. I think every of those, all of those family comedies will all make fun of Dad and the sounds that Dad makes. A Cup of Tea says, howdy, y'all. Hope the day goes great for you. Jules is here. Hey, Jules. Good morning, all. Hope everyone had a good Labor Day. I did. Took half the day off and watched some movies I've been meaning to catch up on. It's a good day. Dwight says, hello, Angela. Angelista's an Old Spice Caesar. Old Spice. May it be a sparkling recording day and a profitable week for you all. Dwight says to Caesar, and no, you are not that guy on the beach in the commercial. You may sound like you should look like him, but that is the beauty of audio and not video. LOL. Love you, little brother. Alicia is here. Hey, Alicia. Dwight says, I try to provide just what I think the tonal sound performance that is required to bring the piece to life. Basically, it is an interpretation of what I think the customer would like or needs. And that's kind of where I got stuck, I think, a lot in the beginning was perhaps over-analyzing, right? If you are reading the text specs, the notes, whatever the author or the client is giving you along with the audition script, sometimes it can be a little confusing because perhaps the script reads to you one way, but the client is asking for something completely different that doesn't quite feel right to you. So in that instance, what I may do is if it's a short audition read, like commercial or something like that, I might give them 2 reads or a couple of different variations of the script read in the one audition. But at the beginning of the audio file, I will include take 1 of 2 or take 1 of 3, just to let them know there is more, right? Because they may not listen through the entire thing. They may not listen through the entire thing at all. But I would say that the very first take that you give them, if you give them variations, is to give them what they're asking for. And then go into what you feel the script, how the script feels for you, right? Give them a couple of variations, but let them know that there are going to be variations. Dwight says sometimes the client doesn't even know what they want or need, but know when they hear it or know what it is that they don't want. And if the client does sound a little vague or perhaps a little wishy-washy, or you can kind of pick up on the words they're using. If they don't quite know what they're looking for, then at that instance, I would probably give them how the script feels to me. And then give them maybe another variation. A little bit closer, perhaps, to what they were asking for, but that way they can kind of get the difference between the two. Yep. Oh, we have a super chat. Hold on. I'm coming. Sean. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you. I've adopted the practice recommended by another voice actor of daily listening to my own work. It seems to help me ID when I'm faking it. Conversational is hard. That is actually a great tip. That is a great tip. Although if you're not yet familiar with the difference, you may mistake the two. Or one of the two, or both. You might even give yourself the opportunity to overthink it completely and think that neither fits what the client is looking for, or neither is conversational, or both are faking, or both are incorrect. I think if you're someone that is just starting and you've given a couple of variations of an audition and you feel like neither of them sound very conversational when you're trying to, that would be a great time to have someone else listen to it and tell you their opinion. Someone who knows you, and then maybe perhaps someone else who doesn't. Because you can usually tell if someone's being inauthentic, not connected, just totally not understanding, or inserting that artificial inflection instead of genuine understanding and authenticity. You can hear it. You can hear it in a read. I think that that is the main thing about AI, is that it's not genuine. It just doesn't sound connected to what it's saying. I know a lot of people fought with me on that last AI, those AI videos, snippets of the last live that I posted. A lot of people were, giving me heck about AI and how great it is. I never said it wasn't. I just said there's a place for it. And it's not everywhere a voice actor is. Because in some instances, that authenticity is needed and desired. And that is not a place for AI. That is what I'm saying. There's a place for both. That is what I mean. But you could definitely hear it when it's disingenuine, when it's not connected, for sure. But I would have other people take a listen to it. That's why I say to join those groups. Join workshops. Join the Launchpad. That is where our platinum group, that we're always talking about platinum for the last 5 or 6 years. We've been talking about my platinum group. We are now Launchpad. We started officially yesterday. And to join, if you want to, there's a link in the description below. Check it out. We'd love to have you. It's group feedback, group exercises. We do a lot together and have a great time. Looking forward to it. This will be our first Launchpad meeting on Thursday. And then I have an audiobook class on Friday. Anywho, I'm getting sidetracked. But Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. I see there's another one. I see no Caesars. What is going on here? Caesar, thank you for the super chat. I'm afraid to read the comment. Oi, do I look at me? I'm on a horse. Sorry, Angela, I had to do that. Please purchase a jar of pickles. So you're the Old Spice guy on the horse on the beach. Thank you, Caesar. I appreciate you. And I love pickles. I like the hot, spicy pickles. Does anybody else like hot, spicy pickles? That's my favorite. Here we are. Sage says, good afternoon, everyone. Driving home from PT now, so just going to lurk for now. I hope everything is going well with physical therapy. I know it can be arduous, but worth it, for sure. Natalie's narration says, good morning, everyone, and happy birth month, Caesar. I'm team storytelling emotional right now. I enjoy fiction reading most, so that tends to be what I audition for most. And I think that's a good way to approach it, especially if you're just starting, because what you enjoy is going to come through naturally in your read, right? It's when you get into, talking about or narrating something that is either not interesting or sort of uncomfortable. That's why a lot of people don't like to do political reads, and I don't blame them. Those are hard. I've done a couple during my tenure, and they were both very difficult because I did not agree. I did not agree with what I was saying, so it was very difficult to sound excited and genuinely authentic about what I was saying. That was difficult. So if it is something that you relate to, enjoy, it's definitely good, especially in the beginning, again, to audition for things that you enjoy. It'll make that authenticity and genuineness come through naturally. Tanya's here. Hey, Tanya. Evening all. I mostly get fantasy horror books, and they want warm conversational style that's verging on storytelling. They usually want to get a specific emotion from the listener. Yes, I would think so. From those kinds, you're definitely building, there's a lot of probably scene building, tension building, all of those things, right? Plot. So I would imagine there's a whole lot more there in the storytelling realm than conversational, for sure. Janelle, hey Janelle. Janelle says, hey Angela, hi everyone. It's mostly storytelling and emotional depending on the book and the client. Big energy is audio drama, but again, depends on my clients, of course. And keep in mind that, as I always say, voice actors represent the world, so we are the voices of the world, and there is a need for every voice and for so many different applications. If you sit and think about all of the different things that you hear during the course of the day that has a voice attached to it, there could be a voice actor involved. There could be a voice actor narrating that. So there's so many different applications, and then in that respect, different styles, paces, tones, right? There's just so much out there that needs a voice actor. Rebecca says, good morning, everyone. I've been hired based on my storytelling and emotional style. To be fair, that's what I love to do and what I market, except for this week, since I'm fighting off a cold. Oh, no. And when you, and just not for you, well, I guess, yeah, for you, Rebecca, but I think you know, but for the majority of you, when you do get sick, don't try to push it. You're better off allowing your body to rest and heal instead of trying to push through whatever you got left. And when your voice is just, it doesn't sound the same, especially if you're an audiobook narrator. Reach out to the client, tell them that you're under the weather and that your voice is, of course, going to be affected, and that you might need a little bit more time to give them the best uniform quality result. You're going to need a little bit of time. Gregory says, good morning, my good people. Gregory, I think your TikToks are so motivational and uplifting. I love them. I love them. I love them. I think you should keep going with what you're doing. I love it. I slipped in right as the door was closing. I come from the era of in-your-face announcer voiceover style from my 90s radio days. Saying the renewing of the mind is a challenge is more than an understatement. Even though most of my spots were conversational, the announcer guy approach was always superimposed on every project. Yes, I've met a handful of former DJs, former radio voices, in my tenure here in the voiceover industry, and I find that usually they have the hardest time undoing that programming because it's something at that point that is ingrained, in this is how it's done. So sort of letting go of that is like relearning a whole different language. So I would imagine for you all, it's really tough to do. Gregory says, that said, I really haven't been booking, still going at it in the far north Dallas and TikTok. Keep it going in TikTok. I love your TikToks. Tanya says, I have to get to know my characters and what I feel about them. If I don't care what happens to them, why should the listener? Yeah, especially if you're into audiobooks and it is fiction. I mean, most of the time you're going to see this sort of thing in fiction where there are, of course, characters. And it is a good idea to read through the book first. Make notes about the characters, their backstory if it's given. Why, how do I want to say this? Perhaps why they feel the way they do, understanding that at the very least. Who they are to everyone else in the story. Any sort of attributes or nuances, anything else that needs to be noted about the character. That way you have a firm understanding of who they are. And I think a great way to come up with voices for these kinds of characters is, who does this character remind you of? Do they remind you of just quick characters in my mind that come to mind? We brought up Dexter before. Dexter has a way of speaking. He's emotionally detached and he's sort of just straightforward but curious. Dexter has this sort of personality to them. So if a character that in a book that you're narrating reminds you of Dexter or another character that fits the description, then you could sort of slip on Dexter's shoes, right? Or Captain Kirk or whoever it is that they remind you of. Paul says, and sad and dramatic is what they got and paid for. Oh, really? Interesting. Gregory says, my 82-year-old dad makes fun of me when I moan and groan in victory as I rise. Somehow he doesn't make those sounds. If he doesn't, then what is he doing? What is his secret sauce? I have to know. Yeah, thanks, Joy. No, Caesar. Paul. Hey, Paul. Paul brought donuts and tacos. Abe says accents also have an effect on how I read a story. Yes, if you're talking like character differentiation, or if you're talking about if a client has asked for a specific accent, it's definitely going to change the way you read. But I don't really do accents. I mean, I've recognized years ago that I'm not really good with them. I hear them in my head, but getting them out of my mouth the correct way is a whole other thing. And so I've had to turn down work when people are asking for, specific accents and the main character has an accent and so on. Because I just can't sustain it. Caesar says, whenever I read anything in a cowboy accent, I'm followed by buzzards. Because wherever I go, death follows. Joey says, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm from, let me start that over. Good afternoon, everyone from Southfield, Michigan. Spicy Caesar, really? Hey, I'm still working on getting the new laptop, but I did get a tune-up on the old timer. Well, that's good. That's a start. Hang on, I got to turn my air conditioner on because feel the buzzards circling overhead. It's hot. It's not that bad, actually. Dwight says, hot, spicy dill to anything is awesome. Pickles, dilly beans, garlic. Yeah. Ben says, for conversational reads, my coach taught me to have a pre-conversation with someone before starting the script. And that is ultimately the thing that has helped me achieve that conversational tone. Instead of trying to sound conversational, we use what we call either a jump off or a lead in or a pre-conversation, where if you're going for a conversational read, and it does help to have a picture of someone in your studio to make eye contact with, and you could say, choose a name. Hey, Ben, I heard this really funny story today. Let me tell you about it. Or, hey, Ben, how you been? I haven't seen you in so long. And then go into the script. Whatever is fitting for the script that you're reading. Hey, guys, thank you for gathering today. I have this really important topic that I need to talk to you about. And it is go into the script. But that sort of sets the tone in your head. And it sort of puts you in a certain place mentally where you can continue on with that same tone and pace and cadence that is appropriate for the script that you're being asked to read. And then edit that pre-conversation or the lead-in, jump-off, whatever. Edit that out after if it's not appropriate. Gregory says, Angela, if you like spicy pickles and find yourself in Dallas, a restaurant called Twisted Root Burger Company has a pickle bar. All you can eat and as many times you want to go. That sounds dangerous, but I will keep that in mind. Caesar says to Joy, noise. What sort of tune-up? And when do you figure you can spring for a shiny new one? Yeah, with Windows 11 coming in. When is that? When does Windows 10 support stop? Sometime in October, I think. Yeah, I need to update all my stuff too. I think this computer, the BIOS needs to be updated. Fun. Tanya says, I'm having to learn to use my gain very carefully for audio drama. Audio drama, not auto drama, audio drama. Lots of shouting and swearing. And that is definitely something that we do use If you have, and you should, if you've read the script through a few times, you'll have an idea of where you might need to use more volume in addition to energy to get something out the way that it's intended. And to have maybe, you could even mark it out on your interface with a marker or a pen or something. That way you can quickly move your gain up and down to a certain point. Like if you know you're going to be loud, you can turn it down to, the shouting point, however you want to label it. And then when you're not shouting, you turn it back up to normal. So that way the volume preceding the shout is consistent to after the shout, right? That way you can quickly at a glance see, okay, this is where I shout. This is where you guys can't see what I'm doing with my hand at all. So, but I'm hoping that you're getting the picture of what I'm saying. But yes, you could do that to help with not blowing out the volume of your audio while you're doing the shout. Or pulling back will also help. But then you lose some of that proximity to the microphone. Because as you can tell, as I move around, my voice sort of will sound different depending on my proximity to the microphone. So turning down the gain is usually a better way to go. Caesar says to Tanya, go or get yourself a hardware preamp and compressor. It's only blindingly expensive. Only. After the new mic, SSD computer. Dwight says, don't forget to hit those like, follow, and share buttons. Yes, do all the YouTube-y things. I appreciate you. Helps my algorithm. For sure. Thank you. Joy says to Caesar, they ran antivirus stuff and something they said to help it run a little faster. I noticed Zoom runs better. That's about it. Tanya says, I was told that if you can't read a full Shakespeare passage in an accent, you haven't mastered it yet. Yeah. How do you do this stuff, Caesar? Dwight says, speaking of hot, spicy dilled products, I find that when I am having more sticky mushroom mouth smacks, I can cut through it. I can cut through that if I eat something pickled to help clear out the palate. It works great. So a lot of people say citrus. It's the acid. Anything with acids in it, right? So if you're eating to clear out mouth clicks is what we're saying. And not just any kind of acid, food with natural acids in it. Don't go drinking acid, geez. Green apples have a lot of that natural acids in them, right, that cut through the mouth clicks. Some people will brush their teeth just prior to reading or narrating or performing. That helps to cut down mouth clicks. I keep water in my studio, hydration, or just a swig to clear everything out. Occasionally helps for me. Some people say like a fire cider. Some people say whiskey. And now Dwight has said that dill, brine, I would think, helps with that. Dill pickles, something briny. Tanya says, remember to cut out the lead-in when you edit. I listened to a retail sample last week where the VO had left it in. God. He's speaking phonetically. Yes, he is. Let's check back in with the poll. So we have 39 votes. What do you get? Again, nobody is saying they do anything corporate and polished or announcer and big energy. It's mostly storytelling and emotional and conversation and natural. That's interesting to me. So I'm guessing the majority of you are audiobook narrators is what I'm guessing. Because even, again, some e-learning that I've done has been corporate and polished. I don't know if I've done... No, actually I have done. I have done announcer and big energy as well. I can't remember what it was for, though. It was a promotion of some sort. But corporate and polished for sure for e-learning. And most of the e-learning that I have done has been in the medical arena. So like a doctor or a peer giving a group of doctors usually some information, or it's like a journal update or a new medical device or a how-to for a medical device. or I don't need to go into detail, do I? But usually corporate and polished is e-learning. That's so interesting. Dwight says, if you have Windows, do yourself a favor and turn off automatic updates. The current Windows update can cause the blue screen of death on some computers that have SSD drives. It's not fixed yet. Interesting. I have heard that for Windows 11, right? I'm still running on 10. I haven't updated anything yet, so I think I'm okay. Caesar says, I've done corporate and trailer stuff years ago, but these days it's all been long form. And you're good at it. That's kind of your money voice, Caesar, is the storytelling voice. I mean, last week when we did our full cast read in our group, you as the narrator for that particular scene was perfect. Chef's kiss. It fit it perfectly. That is definitely your money voice, Caesar. Chuck says, hi, everybody. Hi, Chuck. Late to the party. I'm like you, Angela. Can't sustain an accent other than Southern for any amount of time. Certainly not convincingly. Do you just pass on the project or discuss? Well, if a rights holder reaches out to me to inquire about rates, and they don't include a copy of their manuscript, usually people will just reach out to check your availability and rates first, and then they will give you the manuscript later. But my first response to them is typically, yes, I'm available. If you can share the manuscript with me up front, that way I can take a look and I can, A, verify the word count, B, just skim through it quickly to see what kind of book it is and see if I'm comfortable with the content. And just to get an idea of, like, if it is perhaps fantasy, nonfiction, if there are going to be accents and things, I'll check for those. If there isn't anything that I catch in my initial skim through, I will ask the client, is there anything that I need to know? Do you have any questions? Tell me about perhaps where you're going to distribute this book. Tell me a little bit about your vision for how you want this to sound. Are there any characters with accents or specific dialects, anything like that? And if they come back and say, yes, there are a handful of characters that have this accent, then I will be transparent and say, to be completely honest with you, I'm not the best with accents. I can't sustain them, which doesn't really give us a great audiobook result. And then sometimes they come back and go, well, okay, well, thank you for being honest. And, maybe I'll have another project for you in the future that doesn't have any accents. And people appreciate the honesty, right? And that usually makes an impact in and of itself. Or they'll come back and say, well, you know what? I had this in my head that maybe I would like to have a light British accent, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. I just want a good narrator to tell my story. And I have actually still won book jobs by just being open and honest, right? But you have to, because you shouldn't take on a contract and, someone gives you this manuscript that they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into, for you to just fall on your face and waste everybody's time, right? Why would you want to do that? And just be open and honest. And just tell them, hey, I can't sustain this accent. I'm not good at it. And they might just go, you know what? It really wasn't a big deal anyway. Or, I really am needing this accent, but maybe I'll have another book coming that doesn't require any. But just be honest, right? Sometimes you still win the job. Sometimes maybe you'll get the next one. But honesty is the key. Eric Grams. Hey, Eric Grams. Hi, Angela and all. I also am not great at accents. Characters, yes, but if they ask for a West Southampton, England, but grew up in East Boston accent, then I'm way out of my element. Same. Chuck says, with the RH using conversational style with inflection. Oh, I see. It was a continuation. I apologize. Do you just pass on the project or discuss with the RH using converse? Yeah. Just be honest. Just tell the rights holder that you're not the best with this or that, whatever your weaknesses are, and just focus on your strengths. They will appreciate it. They will appreciate your honesty. Tanya says, the e-learning I've done recently, the rights holder has asked for a more conversational read to avoid accusations of AI. And I am seeing that more and more often. I think a lot of clients are, because of the prevalence of AI reads, people are starting to become more and more accustomed to them. Just in hearing them, they may not still enjoy them, but I'm starting to hear them a lot more. So I think with that, some clients are starting to mistake a real voice for an AI voice because perhaps the narrator didn't connect enough or wasn't authentic enough, or just because their voice was just too professional sounding, right? That the client mistook the real voice actor for AI. Because that line is starting to be blurry, that people are forgetting that AI, those AI algorithms that are spitting out AI voices, are modeled after real voice actors, not the other way around. So when they hear a really nice sounding voice, they're going to mistake it for AI instead of a real voice actor, when that's ultimately what the AI is trying to emulate, right? A real voice actor. So, like we talked about last week, making sure to really connect with your script, perhaps leaving in those mouth clicks, those noises that make us human, leave them in, the breaths, all the things. Leaving some of those in so you're not mistaken for AI. And even if you still are, because I got some arguments about how AI can leave in some of those things too, and I've heard it. I've heard him. I've heard some really great sounding AI that sounded just like one of my clients. I had a client, just as a quick example, that is he's a podcaster, and he's been my client for years now. And he was not feeling well one week and couldn't get an episode done. So what he did was that he used this, I forget what the program was called, but he trained his own AI model after his own voice and created a podcast episode using that AI voice. And it sounded eerily like him, but not quite. Like it sounded a little bit too rushed. The cadence wasn't the same. It was his voice, but the cadence wasn't his normal cadence. It didn't sound right. It sounded rushed. It sounded not quite forced, but just not right. And he didn't like it. But my point is that they sound really passable, but not quite right. Right? So this is where we as voice actors and audiobook narrators really need to take the time and invest in training, practice, getting serious about what we're doing and why we're doing it, to continue to set ourselves apart from the fast food and solidify our place as the home-cooked meal, as we discussed last week. Gregory says, I'm really looking for those corporate and polished projects. I think my voice works for those how-tos and e-learning things. I think so too, but you have a very expressive, you have the ability to be very expressive. So I think you shouldn't limit yourself to just corporate and polished. I think you narrating an audiobook would be great too. Dwight says, yes, Windows 11, but if you get to the time that you're converting over to 11 from 10, might get caught in the crosshairs because of this. I am kind of waiting it out to the last minute to upgrade because I'm hoping that most of the bugs will be worked out before then. That's kind of my plan. Joy says, no doubt, Caesar and Tanya were awesome narrators last week. They were. They both were. Joy says to Dwight, I'm not even going to attempt with my old laptop. I'll probably explode. You or your laptop? Both. If you have questions or anything, the poll is still the same. It's almost an even split now between conversational and natural and storytelling and emotional. if you have questions or comments, anything, now is the time. We got about 10 more minutes. Let's see if I neglected to mention anything in my notes. Oh, monotone. Avoid monotone flat reads. This goes back to this audiobook that I'm trying to listen through. It's it's a nonfiction. It's a how-to book. And the narrator is so monotone and flat. It's really difficult to read. And as an audiobook narrator, you should never be monotone or artificially inflecting, you know. Oh yeah, you can even mark your scripts when you're doing manuscript prep. You can not only mark out places where you could. Now I need to backtrack a little bit. As we say, the written word and the spoken word are two different things. So when you're reading something and there's commas and periods and things, that tells you that's sort of a pause in the sentence or the end of a sentence. But when you're narrating it, you can kind of disregard those. They're more like suggestions. The only punctuation that really matters in a read are exclamation points, quotation marks, parentheses, perhaps, and question marks. Did I ever say question marks? Exclamation points, question marks. Because that is going to change your tone, right? If it's a statement or if it's a question, that's definitely going to change your tone. But commas and periods are more like suggestions. You can remodel or change up that order or format of the text to make it sound appropriate coming out of your mouth. So if it sounds like you don't need to pause where the comma is, don't. Insert it elsewhere or disregard it altogether. So in that manuscript prep, while you're doing that, you can even leave yourself a note to pause for effect if you need to, right? I don't know if AI does that. It probably, someone's going to say, oh yeah, it does everything. And maybe it does. I don't know. But that is something that can help you to sound more conversational, because when you're having a conversation with someone, there's a good chance that you might pause or change it up a bit. You know, when you're having a conversation, do those things. If it just makes it that much more relatable, you know, that you can connect to it because you understand what the narrator is doing, it makes what you're trying to convey will come through. If that makes sense. Tanya says, make sure you look everywhere you can for clues to what the RH wants, especially on ACX. The notes might be in the About This Book rather than the audition section. Yeah, they do kind of switch it up now, don't they? There's usually a spot on ACX for notes from the author if they want something specific or they're looking for, or like they'll share their vision for the book if they want accents, if this is a male, female POV, if this is, you know, what they're looking for. But sometimes they'll change it up and put it in the audition section. So to Tanya's point, before you audition, make sure you read all of those sections. Read everything about the book before you audition so you have an understanding and you find everything that the rights holder is trying to convey to you up front. And if you still have questions, then ask them. When you submit your audition in the text box, you can ask additional questions if you want to. Too many times I see people afraid to ask questions. I get emails all the time. Does this look like a scam? Well, did you ask the rights holder these questions? Did you ask them if they have permission from this person to produce this audio? No? Well, do that. Do that. You can ask those questions. You're thinking from an employee standpoint instead of a CEO standpoint. Remember that when you're an audiobook narrator or you're beginning to start a business, you are the boss. So you can ask those questions. Don't rely on someone else to tell you what to do. Google it. Google the question, get some information, watch some YouTube videos. How is the best way to approach this to get some ideas? Or just ask. Just ask the questions. It would behoove you to have these skills and information and knowledge as the CEO of your baby company to know how to move forward in the future and how to spot these things. Chuck says, is there such a thing as moving back and forth from conversational style and emotional? Yes. Not certain if my question, yeah, of course. It's going to depend. Of course, everything that I tell you are just tips based on a certain aspect. But every audition, read, job, book is going to depend on context and content. It's also going to depend on what the client is asking from you. So if the read or the client is asking for, let's just say, for example, if it's a nonfiction book, and you as the narrator of this book, you most likely are the voice of the author. So you're trying to come across as, here's information, I got you, right? You paid to read this book. Here's the information, I got you. Let me extend my hand and help you through this. I got you. Let's do this together, right? So it's going to be conversational and informational. But there may be like case studies, there may be backstory on perhaps why they wrote this book, because it was something from a traumatic, like a traumatic event, which has prompted them to write this book. In that section, it might be a little bit more emotional because it's heartfelt and from their soul, right? Yeah, of course. It's going to depend on content and context and what the client is asking from you. Of course. So when I say conversational, if it's asking for something emotional, don't continue on with conversational. Make it a little bit more emotional. And if you're having trouble getting these emotions out in a way that is recognizable to the listener, and I always use this example, if I told you I was happy, could you tell that I was happy just by listening to my voice? Probably not. But if I told you I was happy, could you tell that I'm happy? Yes, I have a big smile on my face. You can hear it in the audio. And I gave it a little bit more energy to make sure that it came across sounding like I'm happy. So expressing emotion in an audio format is going to take a little bit more. You got to turn it up a little bit. And we do go through this via Wheel of Emotions. I try to gamify everything that we do in my Platinum group now, Launchpad. Wheel of Emotions is just doing that, focusing on how an emotion sounds and how to get it out of you sounding that way in all the varying degrees of that emotion. So, complete side note, but yes. Joey says, I usually have problems with things like words and parentheses. How do I read words or phrases in those? Typically, when there are parentheses, usually the author is defining something or maybe giving like a hint of a backstory or something of that nature. I could bet you, Joy, if you were reading it to yourself, it would be like, I don't know, just as an example. And then Trixie, the neighbor's cat, came and sat on my knee, right? The neighbor's cat was in parentheses, right? It's an explanation, definition, something like that. So if you could tell how I just did that, you're sort of like inserting information here. It's kind of almost like a little bit of an uptone and like an upshift in tone. You're explaining something. A little bit of a pause, explain it, go back to where you were, right? I would bet you anything you would do that reading it to yourself. It's the same thing, reading it into the microphone. Don't overthink it, Joy. You read them as if they were in parentheses. You're so helpful, Caesar. I appreciate you. Well, it's about that time, you guys. I got to get back to work myself. For those of you that are in Launchpad, Platinum, now Launchpad, for those of you joining us for the first time in Launchpad, our first session is Thursday night at 8 p.m. EST. And then on Friday, if you're in the core for Anthony's Academy, Voiceover Academy. Again, the link is in the description if you want to join. I highly recommend it. It's the best deal ever. You can't find anything like it for that price point. Just saying. We have an audiobook class on Friday, so I will see you guys then. But if you have any questions, comments for me, you know where to find me. Just comment on this video or any other video that you see of mine. And again, these live chats are for you. So if you have questions, you want to talk about something as a group, you tell me. You tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll talk about it. But you have to tell me. You have to talk to me. You have to tell me. So tell me what you want to talk about. Let's do it. All right, you guys. Hang on, a couple more questions. Are all your audiobook classes available to Launchpad? If you're in, remember, the Academy, the VoiceOver Academy, which is the link down below. Actually, I think that link takes you directly to Launchpad. Remember, the Academy has 3 tiers now. The bottom tier is Launchpad, which was Platinum. So if you're in my Platinum group, you got grandfathered into Launchpad. And then the next one is Core, which is where all of the other classes are available, including Launchpad. So you get Launchpad and about 13 other classes from 4 or 5 other coaches throughout the month. So Core is a phenomenal deal because you not only get Launchpad, but then you get 13 other classes throughout the course of the month with 4 or 5 other coaches. I mean, you can't beat that price point. And then the top tier is Premium, which is all of the above, plus you get a 30-minute coaching session with the coach of your choice every month. Still a great price point. You can't beat it. So, yes, Caesar, you are a grandfather. You're so funny. So if you're in just Launchpad, then you have me. I mean, I'm nothing to shake a stick at, but you know. If you upgrade to Core, that's when you get all of the other classes too, including Launchpad. Chuck says, if we are in Launchpad, should we also attend the other training on the other nights like tonight's act? If you're in Core, if you're in the Core membership level, you can attend whatever you want to. Whenever you want to. And they're all recorded and then visible later in archives if you missed one. Yeah, I think I have a pretty good grasp on who you are, Joy. You're Joy. All right, you guys, I will see you all next week. I think I'll see a lot of you on Thursday and Friday. So I will see you guys then. Until then, take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to She-Lancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.